So next item will be under the business services section, and will be Natalie Enoff will be presenting.
Actually, that's a consent item. And you can just go ahead and call for a vote, a motion and a vote.
Okay. Item number 2 will be under the general consent. I apologize for that. Any discussion on the consent? Entertain a motion.
Make a motion to approve.
I'll second that motion.
We got a motion and a second. Please call the roll.
Okay, Mr. Denton made the motion. Mr. Cockrell made the second. Ms. Roulette?
Yes.
Mr. Cockrell?
Yes.
Mr. Denton?
Yes.
Mr. Majors?
Yes.
Mr. Allen?
Yes. Thank you. Next item number 4 will be from the superintendent.
Okay, so I'm actually having a little trouble Googling back or toggling back and forth between the items, but let me see if I can pull this up real quick here. Hold on just a second. Okay.
I think Debbie has to do it.
Well, I think I've got it. Just a second. Okay, I've got it. Okay, so item number 4 is actually an item that provides emergency powers to the superintendent. And the purpose of this item, and we've never actually had to use this before, and I think we would all agree that these are extraordinary circumstances. And what it does is it provides the ability for me to make some choices that won't necessitate us to call special board meetings every single day, anytime that I have to make a decision. Now, to further protect the board and to protect our community and funds and our board policies, what I'm going to put in place, and if you'll see all of those emergency powers, I'm going to go kind of read through that for transparency place. It says, whereas on March 15th, 2020, Governor Stitt declared a state of emergency due to the impending threat of COVID-19 to the people of the state of Oklahoma. And whereas on March 16th, 2020, the State Board of Education voted to enact mandatory statewide closure of all public schools for purposes of providing instructional services or activities until April 16th, 2020. And whereas on March 25th, 2020, the State Board of Education voted to suspend in-person instruction and extracurricular activities and close school buildings for the remainder of the 2019-2020 school year. And whereas under Oklahoma Statute Title 70, 5-106 and 5-117, the Board of Education of each school district in Oklahoma has general control and supervision of all matters pertaining to public schools. And whereas under Oklahoma Statute Title 70, 5-106, the Board of Education has the authority to prescribe the duties of superintendent subject to such limitations set forth in the law. And whereas the Board of Education finds the current state of emergency requires that the superintendent be granted greater flexibility to respond quickly and appropriately to the evolving crisis and the change in education service to district students based on decisions directed by the State Board of Education. And whereas the Board of Education under Board Policy 1170 is expected to delegate the superintendent responsibility for all executive functions and give her authority to commiserate with her responsibilities. And whereas the Board of Education may, by majority vote of the Board of members, present at a board meeting held in compliance with the law and board policies, grant the superintendent the authority to suspend temporarily the operation of any section or sections of board policies not established by law or contract. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Broken Arrow Public Schools Board of Education grants the superintendent the following temporary powers to address the COVID-19 emergency. So to be clear, this is just for the COVID-19 emergency, and they are temporary. So number 1 under this, It gives the superintendent the authority to temporarily waive such board policies or provisions of board policies as the superintendent shall deem necessary to comply with guidance from appropriate health or governmental authorities or necessary for other effective response, provided such action is consistent with all applicable state and federal laws. So again, staying within the laws. Number 2, it gives the superintendent authority to take any lawful actions necessary to ensure the continuation of public education, to provide for the health and safety of students and employees, or to respond to direction from appropriate health and government authorities. Such actions may include, but are not limited to, adjustments to the curriculum and provision of alternative education program options, adjustments to employee work schedules and assignments, modifications to the school calendar, adjustments to the delivery of school-provided meals, limitations on access to property owned or controlled by the Board of Education, applying to any governmental body for financial or other aid as may be available, and applying to any governmental body for waiver of regulations or requirements, compliance with which is affected by the COVID-19 emergency, provided such action is consistent with all applicable state and federal laws. Number 3, authority to enter into contracts without prior board approval for any dollar amount necessary for the purchase of materials, equipment, supplies, or services for sanitation, cleaning, technology, or other needs directly related to the COVID-19 emergency situation, provided such action is consistent with all applicable state and federal laws. Now, be it further resolved that the superintendent shall document and record the temporary suspension and or waiver of any district policies or provisions indicating reasoning for the action and the date said suspension or waiver occurred. Now, be it further resolved that the superintendent is directed to keep the Board of Education informed of any actions taken under this emergency authority as soon as it is practicable in light of the circumstances. Now, be it further resolved that the temporary powers authorized by this resolution are in effect for the duration identified in the governor's order 2020-07 of March 15th, 2020, and in any subsequent extension of that order, unless otherwise rescinded or extended by the board upon a majority vote. Now, be it further resolved that the execution of this resolution is conclusive evidence of the board's approval of this action and authority granted therein. So just an extension of the explanation of that. I'm going to pull up some notes that I had taken. So my plan as an extension of this is what I'm planning on doing is I'm keeping any documentation of any purchases, and I will update that in real time through Basecamp and through Google Sheets. And I've spoken with Ashley Bowser, and he's working on a method so that you all will be able to access that at any time. And then I'll keep documentation of any decisions that I make that might affect board policy, and that will affect those resolutions 1, 2, or 3 in that document. And that's specifically affecting purchasing policy, board policy, or provisions. In addition, if it would make you feel more comfortable, if you want to set a specific amount on those purchases that you would like me to contact you prior, I'm happy to do that. And I'll just leave that open to discussion. Yeah.
Hey, Janet, just real quick, can you confirm for me again how long this temporary approval will be in place? I thought I heard July 15th or something like that, maybe, but can you validate what that was? Or do we even have that established?
We don't have that established because the governor put it in place, but I don't think he's put an end date to it from what I know, because
Okay.
he doesn't know yet.
Understood.
And so it's kind of a temporary order in place. And from what he's said, he's He's waiting to see what kind of effect that has. And so it's temporary. And so you all can rescind that at any time. It just takes
Sure.
a majority vote of the board to take that away. And so it
Just
can be
to cite-
terminated either by a vote of the governor saying, okay, this is ended, or from a vote of this board, of the Board of Education.
And just for public sake, I think it would be good too, is this proposal and policy has been reviewed by RFR, our legal
It
team.
has. RFR
Okay.
actually
Yes.
drafted this.
Perfect. Thank you.
And the resolution is attached in ESB for you to review it further if you like.
I have a question, Janet. Do all competitive bid laws still apply from a a dollar amount standpoint with this agreement? I mean, I don't want to see where if we agree something that, I mean, do we still have to abide by the state competitive bid laws?
I would think so, within reason. I mean, when you're in an emergency situation, you're having to have cleanup done. I think we're kind of in a
Sure.
situation where sometimes you have to get it done quickly, but within reason, yes. When you have a situation like this, sometimes there's only a few people that can do this.
Okay.
So honestly, I'm going to err on the side of caution. And if we need to get a building cleaned up in 24 hours, we're going to get cleaned up in 24 hours.
Okay.
I've got a question, just so this and everybody else can understand. When you talk about the secondary school activities being restricted or shut down, that's only to the school facilities. So anything that has to do with that, nothing outside of the facilities. In the future, we haven't even got to the point of talking about if there's like a graduation or anything like that. That's going to be outside. This item that we're voting on tonight is just strictly on the school and the activities that are being restricted there at what we own, and then just for the academic portion and educational portion. Does that make sense?
Okay, I'm not sure what you're asking.
I think the question that
Go ahead.
John was maybe asking is this just for decisions and things that are going on academically within our schools? But I think to further ask the decision's already been made to cancel like all school activities, right? Or not?
Correct. And quite honestly, I mean, if we're talking about graduation at this point, that's out of our hands. That's been decided by our governor, because all gatherings of 10 or more people have been halted.
Indefinitely until we know.
Indefinitely. So that's out
So
of our
John,
hands.
John, I think the answer is, graduation at this point. I mean, that's called off. I mean, prom. I mean, anything really respective to school activities.
And I wanted to be clear on that because what it's stating in there says that all the secondary school activities on the school property, basically what we're voting on tonight. But like you guys are saying, the governor's already decided all the other extracurricular activities and stuff that's already been, and that's not our decision.
Correct.
Okay.
And to be clear, the State Board of Education is who has canceled all activities. So we have to follow suit. It's that's correct. We are following suit from what has been the decision that has come from the State Board of Education.
Okay.
And what we're asking is just pertaining to the COVID situation and the ability for you to make decisions during this time for purchases and the other items that you listed. And that's what we're voting on, is just for this time period, correct?
Correct. Just a reaction to COVID-19. It allows me to make decisions quickly without having to have a special board meeting. For example,
Sure.
if we know that we have a staff member who has been identified of being diagnosed with COVID-19, and we need to get inside of a building and clean up immediately, and we need to contract with someone to do that cleanup. We don't have time to call a special board meeting
Right.
and then contract with someone to get that cleanup. We need to be able to do it quickly. And in addition, all of our school sites are closed, so we couldn't hold any any activities anyway. That has been decided from our State Board of Education.
Well, and I think this is definitely needed, just by watching how fluid the situation is and how things, I mean, and we're in uncharted territories just from a school standpoint. So this is probably very much, and I feel it's very much needed and for approval, or we'd have to have meetings every day basically because of circumstances that you don't typically deal with. So
Correct.
I just want to make sure that I heard this correctly. If the governor lifts all the restrictions, or the State Board of Education does, then that automatically makes it null and void, or do we have to come back to vote it out?
The way I read the language, it would make it null and void.
Okay.
I'll consult RFR to verify that. But the way the language reads to me, it would make it null and void.
well, and I think for us to address that, we will have another board meeting, so we could, and if this thing ends, we can definitely nullify that action if just need be any, just for the comfort of knowing that.
Well, and the language,
resolved that.
right? The language in the item itself speaks to that because it says it's for the COVID-19 crisis.
Okay.
So when the crisis ends, then it's null and void.
Okay.
Now, Janet, I know at one point in time you had said, we could potentially put a limit on the dollar amount. Was there, is there any recommendation from Natalie or anybody like that, or yourself for that matter, that we want to put out there for consideration, or do we just or just leave it as is?
That's really up to the board's discretion. I'm good either way. If you all feel like there's an amount that you would like to keep it under, or if you would just like to have it on the record in this meeting that you would like me to consult with you verbally prior to approving a certain amount, I'm good with that either way.
Okay.
I think things to consider though is just how ever changing. We don't know. So if we decide to put whatever, we just may we could be having these meetings. Of course, we don't want unverified or reviewed by the board of just unlimited spending. But I think we have to be careful.
Sure.
Well,
and we
haven't keep keeping us informed. We don't want to tire right at this point in the process.
Right.
So I think if she keeps us informed like she said she was going to do, and dates came, whatnot, I think we just got a trouble going to happen here for a while.
Sure. Yeah. And we have a policy in place at the $50,000 limit. So what I can promise you is that if we have some kind of an expenditure that's going to be at $50,000, I'm pretty good about it always calling you all ahead of time if we're going to have some big decision like that. So I can always call you at
Janet, one thing that might be helpful is to have some sort of setting a limit internally to that you're approving that limit, and that way, you those big ticket items you're able to inform the board about.
Right. And
Dr. Dunlop,
we have that in place. I'm sorry. Was someone saying something?
Natalie.
Dr. Dunlop, this is Natalie.
Yes.
Yes. Do you mind if I interject?
Absolutely, please.
I just wanted to remind the board also that we will continue to have internal controls in place through our financial accounting system and WinGauge that will still be keeping the budget intact while we go through some of these unexpected purchases and unforeseen items. And we are still held under the county excise board limit as another internal check for our budgets.
Awesome. Thank you, Natalie.
And those competitive bidding laws are still in place. So all of that keeps us in check.
Okay.
Okay. Well, I feel comfortable with that. So
Any other discussion?
I don't.
Entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second that motion.
Motion and a second. Please call the roll.
I have a motion from Mr. Denton and a second from Mr. Cockrell. Ms. Roulette,
Yes.
Mr. Cockrell,
Yes.
Mr. Denton,
Yes.
Mr. Majors,
Yes.
Mr. Allen.
Yes. Did Mr. Cockrell say yes or his dog?
That's not my dog,
That's my dog.
but it'll be on YouTube here in a little bit.
Oh, this is good stuff.
Nothing but a
All
beat.
right. Item number 5, Dr. Dunlop.
Okay, item number 5 is the item that actually speaks to amending the instructional calendar. And again, this was something that was put into place by the State Board of Education, and it's particular to this COVID-19 crisis. Now, what the State Board of Education spoke about is they provided within their discussion some specific waivers that allowed us flexibility in funds. Some examples were using RSA funds or using textbook funds that allowed us to use those dollars instead of using them on the textbooks, but instead to use them, for example, on technology hotspots or additional devices, so that we could make sure to provide access for students who may not have access at home. And so within that language, they encourage districts to stay in school till at least May 8th. So what we would like to ask the board this evening is that we end our school calendar, and it's kind of like a soft close. One of the things that I'm very passionate about with my background in instruction is that we don't ever put kids in a position where we are not giving them every single opportunity to be successful. So with this soft ending, the soft ending of school would be May 8th. So May 8th, if we have students who have met all of our standards and they are ready, their teacher says, you know what, they're ready to move on either to the next grade or ready to graduate, then they're finished on May 8th. But if we have students who have not met standards, this is especially important for our seniors and for our third grade students who have not met reading standards, then they have until May 22nd to work with those teachers who are still on contract to continue to work really hard to meet those standards and get help. What this does is it allows teachers to really focus on the kids who really need help, and let those students who have already met the standards move on. I'm passionate that this is the right thing to do. To me, it's not right to just end on May 8th or even May 15th and say, sorry, you didn't quite make it. If we're moving to a whole new way of learning online, we can't take the chance that a student hasn't met those standards for the off chance that it's because we're learning online instead of learning in the classroom. So let's offer them some more time and more opportunities for those teachers to focus just on those students who need extra help.
I think that's great, by the way. I appreciate you kind of keeping the children in mind in that aspect, so that, I mean, we're not going to just, all right, draw a mark in the sand, here's when we end it. This is definitely keeping the kids' interest in the forefront. So job well done.
Our teachers love our kids, and they want to do the right thing. And I think they'll rally behind this idea and say, you know what, it's the right thing to do. And I'm not willing to stop until I know I've done everything in my power to see that our kids can be successful this first round. And then, you know what, if they're not successful this first round, we'll have summer school. We'll have another opportunity for them to be successful. But let's make sure and pull out all the stops this first time and give them a few more weeks to be successful.
Perfect.
Just
go ahead.
For clarity, so if everything the student has done as expected, or what they meet the minimum threshold, May 8th will be their last day. But it's kind of a grace period for those that aren't able to, for whatever reason, to be able to get extra help or get focused to get to where they need to be by the 22nd. Is that
Correct.
okay?
Correct. And it's good for our teachers too, because, if you've got, I'll give you an example. If you're a high school teacher, you may have 140, 160 kids. And so to try to focus on 160 kids until May 22nd, that's a lot.
Mhm.
Well, so if you've got kids who are ready to move on, you can get them finished at May 8th. And then it allows you to just focus on those 25, 30 kids who aren't quite ready until May 22nd. Another example, you've got third grade kids and all but, 5 of your third graders are ready to go. You can instead focus on those 5, 7 kids to make sure they're ready by the time you get to May 22nd.
Okay.
I have a question. I mean, our teachers are fantastic, but they are taught to be, or they are classroom, and they are delivering classroom instruction. Are they getting any resources helping them teach online?
They are. So we have actually started working prior to spring break in preparation for this. So our instructional specialists and our entire instructional division had been preparing for this. And so we were pretty ready to hit the ground. And now we are beginning to provide professional development to our teachers so that they're ready to shift to this different way of teaching. And I'm going to be real, our elementary kids, they're just not prepared to learn fully online. So this is going to be a blended learning approach for them. Our secondary kids are more ready for this because they've been doing it. They've been using Chromebooks and learning using the Canvas platform for quite some time. But our elementary students, it's going to be using packets. It's going to be using videos. It's going to be FaceTiming teachers, a lot of different methods. And it's not going to be easy. I'm not going to pretend like it's going to be easy. And I want to be clear with parents. Your kids are not going to be learning 7 hours a day like they did when they went to school. It's going to be a shortened time because kids at that age are just not able to sit and learn at the kitchen table all day long like that. It's going to be short bursts of learning. And we've been very, very clear with the teachers also that we're not going to pile on a bunch of homework because that's not fair to the kids and it's also not fair to the parents. I have 2 kids of my own and I'm not prepared to, I have a full-time job too. I'm not prepared to sit and work for 6 hours on homework with my kids. So we got to be sensitive to our families at home as well.
Dr. Dunlop, can you talk to what about the students that have maybe either IEPs or some of the special classes or needs that are out there right now? How are we handling some of that?
So that's especially challenging, and those
Sure.
we're having to reach out individually to those families.
Okay.
Because the IEPs, because those are federal documents. Daleen Thornton is our special ed executive director, and she's coordinating that effort to where we're having to reach out individually to those families. And our state director has been very clear that there are some cases where the need is so extreme that it's going to be really difficult. Because there's some instruction that it just has to be face-to-face.
Understood.
So we're going to do the best we can to provide resources and methods to use at home. And as far as, one of the questions they asked in a meeting with Joy Hoffmeister is, well, if a teacher or a parent wants to go and meet with a kid or meet with a family, can they do that? You know what? If they want to take that on for themselves, that has to be something they want to do personally, but that is not an expectation we have for them at all. In this health crisis, we would never expect anyone to take that on.
Understood.
It's an awful situation. And my heart breaks for those families because I can't imagine being in that situation. But we're going to do our best, and the State Department has also promised that they're going to try to do the best they can to support us through this. this is, I think more than anything, this is drawn out our weakness.
Well, and this is definitely uncharted waters that none of us would have imagined. So,
Absolutely.
I appreciate the candid answer on that. I know we're doing the best we can, and these are just. I know we talk about it's just times that we've never, ever expected. So.
Right. Well, and I want to point out, there's been a lot of conversation about, virtual schools in the last couple of years. This is one of the reasons why virtual schools cannot be successful in educating profound students with special needs, because it has to be face-to-face. It has to be face-to-face.
Yeah.
So that's a resource we provide that no one else can do, and Broken Arrow Schools does it really, really, really well.
Agreed.
It's a source of pride for us. We do a lot of things really well. We do AP really well. So it's heartbreaking to us not to be able to provide that service. Our kids, I don't know if people have seen it, but there's all kinds of videos out on Facebook from our teachers, and they have tears in their eyes. They can't stand being away from the kids. It's awful.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Mr. Allen, were you talking? We can't hear you now.
I think we lost him.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll wait a moment for him to join back in.
Yeah.
Said it looks like we've lost the agenda up there too.
I still have mine.
Yeah, let's do it.
I don't have mine no more. I had it.
I still have mine.
I've got you, Debbie.
Okay, let me see if I can pull it back up for you. Hang on.
I can go back.
Can you see it yet?
No.
Okay. Steve just messaged me and he says he got kicked out of the meeting because he says it's too full.
It's too full.
Yeah.
We've had people dropping out.
Can we have someone drop out?
Some
Yeah.
people are dropping out right now as well too. So you may ask Mr. Allen to try and get back in.
Okay.
I've pulled my up on base.
We're down to 12, so we had 14.
Okay, I'm gonna tell him to try again. I'll wait for him to rejoin to make one last final point.
He's there.
He's
here.
Mr. Allen back.
Okay, so I'm going to make one final point about special ed and regular ed as well, is that the State Department has compiled guidance for both special ed, regular ed, and for EO that is intended to guide us through how to do this, how to do virtual ed, and what those expectations are and how to meet the standards. So that's one of the expectations, is that that's a minimum bar that we hit. So we have already got our plan done. That guidance is supposed to, I think it was released today. So we're using that, and we're going to compare it, crosswalk it with what we have done. And then we'll turn our plan in. It's a comprehensive learning plan, basically, that we have to turn in to be able to get that flexibility and that waiver. And we'll turn that in as soon as we possibly can. It's ready to go, and then we'll be ready to move forward.
Dr. Dunlop, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
The board, if the board approves this evening, can you speak to your communication plan as we move forward for the district and parents?
Yes. So far, we've been communicating. I've sent out, oh gosh, I don't even know, maybe 2 or 3 letters, and have communicated through video on our website, through our telephone. You know, we've got a school messenger. The video was released to our website. It was released on Facebook. All of our normal channels, and then through email. So it was emailed to all of our parents. We're sending out another letter tomorrow morning, and then another video will be done next week. And that is our plan, is to be doing regular videos from me. And then the expectation is that the principals will do at least 1 video a week, preferably 2. And then that the teachers themselves will be reaching out to all students and all parents at least once a week, preferably twice a week. And that means talking to them. I want them to call them, because the students, especially the young students, need to see their teachers' faces, or at least hear their voice. This is, you know, they're used to seeing those kiddos every single day, and the kids are used to seeing their teachers' faces. So that's that expectation of communication. And then, of course, with the board, I'll be in communication with you all at least once, probably twice a week.
Thank you. Any other discussion?
I think so. Nope.
Entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to accept.
I'll second that motion.
Motion and a second. Roll.
Mr. Denton called for the motion, and Mr. Cockrell seconded. Mrs. Roulette,
Yes.
Mr. Cockrell,
Yes.
Mr. Denton,
Yes.
Mr. Majors,
Yes.
Mr. Allen.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Dr. Pop, before we get off here, I want to thank you, your leadership team, and our teachers, and all of our staff, just everyone, for being patient. And I know those are uncharted territory and emotional times for everyone. And we are Broken Arrow. We are a big family. We will get through this. And but I want to thank all of you all for your hard effort.
Thank you.
Everyone stay safe, and
You as well.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second that motion.
Motion and a second. Please call the roll.
Mr. Denton made the first motion. Mr. Cockrell made second. Ms. Roulette.
Yes.
Adjourn, Ms. Roulette.
Yes.
Mr. Cockrell,
Yes.
Mr. Denton,
Yes.
Mr. Majors,
Yes.
Mr. Allen.
Yes. Thank you. Meeting adjourned.
Thank you. We're
Thank you,
adjourned.
guys. Appreciate it.